Hey guys, welcome to Kensington. My name is Jen, and we are so glad that you're joining us live. For those of you who are already following us on social media, thank you so much for just sharing that content and for following us there. And if you're not already, we'd love to invite you to follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter accounts. We have an incredible service planned today with a fantastic opener that you are not going to want to miss. On top of that, we are going to have the opportunity to hear from one of our global partners, and we're just so excited for the opportunity to learn from them. There will also be a message from Patrick, and we are going to be kicking off here momentarily, and we hope that you enjoy it. Man, wasn't that amazing? Let's give it up for them one more time. Anybody else want to learn drums after that, or is that just me? Well, welcome so much to Kensington, you guys. My name is Jen, and I'm on staff here. And whether this is your first time here or your 100th time here, I just want to say welcome. We are so glad that you were able to make it this morning. And here at Kensington, we really believe in just having a safe space where you can come, where you can ask questions and explore your faith, no matter where you are in that journey. And also today, you may have noticed walking in, there's a PG-10 rating on this day. We are going to have the opportunity to hear from one of our global partners, and some of the content, depending on where your child is at, you may or may not want them to hear some of that. And if you choose not to, we want to give you the opportunity to take your kids back to our incredible K-Kids environment with programming that's made just for them. And also, too, if you weren't here last week and you didn't receive one of these, it's our year-end Christmas gift booklet. Patrick is going to be talking about this a little bit later, but we'd love to invite you to grab one. It covers several of the amazing programs that we are able to offer through the generous giving of others. So, anybody else a little scared by how quickly Christmas is coming? Anybody else not do their Christmas shopping yet? Just me? Well, to give you a little bit of a sneak peek at what our Christmas services are going to look like, we wanted to show you this.
He said it's in the town of David. It shouldn't be much further.
We need to keep following the star.
It appears to have stopped over in that direction.
Come this way. It'd be very quiet. Mary's very tired.
Hope you're hungry. The chili's been cooking all day.
Did you bring the spices?
I bring red pepper flakes.
Cayenne pepper.
And cumin.
We come bearing the gift of unleavened cornbread.
So
Did you put beans in it this time?
I did.
Okay, good. Doesn't sit well with my
Oh, well,
we're gonna have to
we'll
fill
send
it
you
for
out
10,000
after.
miles.
You can leave. Anybody have Tums?
Plot twist. So if you're wondering what all that was about, our theme this Christmas is just another day in December, and we're going to be taking a look at what our life and what our world would be like if Jesus had never been born. And we would love to invite you to be a part of our Christmas experience. We have 5 services available. We have 2 on Saturday, September 23rd at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And then we have 2 more on Christmas Eve at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Plus, we have a special render service at 11 p.m. that will be here at Kensington. And there are a couple things that we would love to invite you to do with that. Number 1 is we would love to invite you to come, and we would love to invite you to bring somebody with you. This is that time of year where everyone's kind of looking for a place to get a little bit more into the Christmas spirit, and some people are looking for a church experience on these days. So please invite people. And then secondly, we would love to invite you to go on our website and get free Christmas tickets. These Christmas tickets, it's like whose line is it anyway? They literally mean nothing except for us. So when you go online, what it does is it helps us to better prepare for you and your family. And once again, they're completely free. You can find them at kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas. And then the third thing that we would love to invite you to do is, if you've been coming for several weeks, we would love to invite you to come one and then serve one. This time of year requires so many hands on deck to provide such an incredible experience for those who are coming. So once again, we would love to invite you to come one and then serve one. So we're going to get started here in just a moment. Ryan and the band, they're going to do some more music for us. So before we do that, I would love to invite you to stand up. I would love to invite you to crunch in the middle of your sections for those who are still coming in. And I'd love you to ask your neighbor, what is your favorite Christmas carol? Go ahead.
know about you, but one of my favorite Christmas carols is a song called Joy to the World. And this is Annie. This is Ben to my right. We're going to lead you guys in that song today. Hope you guys dig it. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. Of his love and wonders, wonders of his love. Oh, we sing the wonders of your love today. Wondrous love. Declare and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God, the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. Just your voices, beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is, and nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. He didn't want heaven without us, so Jesus, you brought heaven down. The sin was great, your love was great. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is, and nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is, the name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is, the name of Jesus.
We've been on kind of a journey. The first song we led you in is just declaring what God has done. The last song we just sang declares what God is and his character. This next song I want to lead you in is talking about what we believe God to do in this coming year. So wherever you're out in your journey, I just encourage you, just let this song impact you in whatever way, wherever you're at. Let's sing it together. The earth will shake, tremble before him, chains will break, it's heaven and earth sing, holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. The earth will shake, come on, and tremble before him, chains will break as heaven and earth we sing, holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Come on, would you sing that today? The earth, come on, will shake and tremble before him, chains will break as heaven and earth we sing, holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. In the earth, oh, the earth will shake and tremble before him, chains will break as heaven and earth we sing, holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Lift up our eyes and see the King has come, light of the world, reaching out for us. There is no other name, there is no other name, Jesus Christ our God. Oh, seated on high, the undefeated one. Mountains bow down as we lift him up. There is no other name, 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 Jesus.
Well, thank you so much for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat. And if this is your first time, we just want to say welcome. And when you hear several songs like that, you know, what you're getting a picture of and what you're getting a glimpse of here is what we believe about God. That no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what your background is, that there is a God who is the light of the world that is reaching out to you and wants a relationship with you. And over the course of these next few minutes that we have together, you're going to get a glimpse, again, of what we believe about that through music, but you're also going to get a glimpse of about that, what we believe about that throughout the whole world, like what we believe about God doing throughout the entire world and how God is moving, not just here in Traverse City, not just in Michigan, not just in the United States, but how the work of Jesus is actually happening all over the world to bring hope to the brokenhearted, to heal brokenness, and how he's using people just like you to do that. And so for these next few minutes, we have a video that we wanted to show you, and it's a little bit about what's going on in Sudan. And what you're going to be able to do is get a glimpse of what God is doing through people just like you on the other side of the world, again, to bring hope to the brokenness over there. So let's watch this video together.
Has there ever been a time in history where we are more immediately inundated with news that tends to bring us to despair or to give up hope? Do you realize that when you invest in a year-end Christmas gift at Kensington, that the opposite is true? That you're actually seeing hope and joy and love and peace come to the world? We're seeing that in so many countries in the world, explosive church planting movements. And probably none is more amazing or more miraculous than what is happening in the new country of South Sudan. Reuben Mariakal, our partner, and his friends in South Sudan are putting their life on the line each day. They literally don't know from day to day if they're going to live or die. But in the midst of this, overwhelming peace is coming to the world. And so today, as you watch this amazing story of this unlikely hero, a man named Nicodemus, realize that you and I get to be a part of something that is so unlikely and so amazing. When you give, we get to be a part of what Jesus Christ is doing in the world.
In my country, peace is rare. People are so used to fighting that many have given up hope that things can change. But God says, blessed are the peacemakers. And sometimes those that bring peace are the ones that no one expects.
I'm in South Sudan, the newest country in the world, and it's located in East Central Africa. And this whole region has been in conflict and ravaged by war in the past 60 years. And actually, it's not getting better, it's getting a whole lot worse. In fact, the compound that we're staying in just a few weeks ago had a bunch of rebels that had come through with guns and threatening violence, and everyone there just did not know what was going to happen. Fueled by racism, political strife, religious persecution, the price of the conflict has been very high. There's actual active landmines just a few feet away from where children are playing. Everyone here lives in a state of uncertainty, not knowing what tomorrow will hold. They all live in fear and long for peace.
When you see a man having marks on the head or on the shoulder, that one means the number of the people that a person has killed during the war. And then when you see the women, you see some women are having marks. That one also shows the husband of the woman has killed many men. They share that glory in the name of husband. So she acts like the husband is an hero. My testimony is about my sister's son. The child grew at my home for more than 10 years. When he was making the 12th year, the child was taken back to the village. He was transferred to a cattle camp. When he reached the cattle camp, they went to the field where the cows are grazing. Then another tribe that used to attack the Toposa tribe called Boya came and raided the cows. And then on the process of raiding, the child was caught by a group of more than 10 men. They used a knife, then they slaughtered the boy. The people took me there using a motorbike to the place where the child was killed. So I went and I saw the body of the child lying on the ground. One hand was cut, then the other hand also was cut. The leg was cut. The head is far away from the body. I was not happy. I became very hungry. So I buried the boy, and then I came back to the village. So I wanted to take one gun to follow the men where they have gone. My aim was to go and clear them all. As you see this mark on my face, these 3 men have killed 3 people, and I was used to it. What was in my body, in my heart, was only to have a revenge. I was only aiming for a revenge. Then one gun which was left in the village was hidden somewhere, because they knew that I loved the boy, and my aim was, if I am to get a gun, I was going to clear even 50 men in that place. So I grew very annoyed, in which I was even almost to hang myself when the people went and hide the gun. The only way was to go and hang myself, but the people went and advised me.
Tormented by the death of his nephew and unable to find his gun, Nicodemus reached a level of despair that led him into considering taking his own life. It was while searching for a weapon in a nearby village that he ran into Reuben Miracle, who would eventually become his mentor and spiritual advisor.
The life that Nicodemus had before getting Christ his aim was to be the hero of the village. And being a hero is to raid as many tribes, the surrounding tribes as possible, is to kill as many people as possible. But once he encountered Christ, there was a radical change in his heart.
Other people went and advised me until they brought me back to Kopeta here, whereby I met with Pastor Reuben and then with other believers. They had to advise me and say, that is not the way. Try to have peace in your heart. So I went and I stayed for more than 20 days until I forgive those people. Christ replaced this problem in me. I had to have peace again. As I am now, I'm going always to the church. I am also advising others who have the same grievances like the way I used to have.
So I see Nicodemus, and he no longer views the other tribes as enemies. He views them as objects of the grace of Christ and the candidates of heaven. And that's why he has now the desire to reach out to the other villages as his friends.
Since his encounter with Jesus, Nicodemus has been radically transformed. Under Reuben's guidance, he now plants churches in the very fields where the Toposa, Dinga, and other neighboring tribes have violently clashed for centuries. Armed with nothing more than the gospel and a motorcycle, he brings peace to a region that many believed impossible to reach.
So we have 2 communities in our location here. So we have the Dedinga community and then the Toposa community. These 2 communities are very hostile to each other. So when we planted the church here, the Toposa and the Dedinga were able to meet together. So what they did, they have to reconcile. Those who accepted Christ, they were able to meet together, and then they worship together. They became one. But in other areas whereby the church is not planted, the war still continues. Many blood is being shedded every time. But we saw really a church can bring peace in a community.
The mission of our ministry is letting the light occupy the land. And we see darkness manifesting itself in different forms. The greatest is spiritual darkness. There is intellectual darkness. There is darkness of hatred and violence. There is socio-economic darkness. And we see, as we are in this land, our ministry is to become hands and feet of Jesus and shine the light and let the light occupy the land. I see Nicodemus maybe finding his fellow warriors in the other village as friends. Even his friends who are raiders, they were 10 in number. His gang of 10 men, and 6 of them he has evangelized and they have come to Christ. when all these guys who are warriors come, they are now warriors for Christ. They are not taking the spears and guns. They are taking the gospel to the next tribes. I see this hope, and I can see changes will be here in years to come.
Jesus means everything to me. In the first place, I was lost. I was a sinner. I was a killer. I was robbing. I used to do many things which are not right. But when Christ came into my heart, I have now hope of being with the Lord.
I think when Christ is taken out of the equation, there's no hope in this country. I mean, governments can come with policies, but that cannot transform the hearts of people. It takes only the power of Christ to transform the hearts of people. If it's just empty philanthropy, helping people and doing that, there could never be hope. But when we are preaching Christ, who is the Prince of Peace, I'm sure ultimately the Prince of Peace will be able to bring peace to this country, so there is hope.
One thing that I love so much about our church and the people that attend, obviously here in Metro Detroit, Orlando, is that we're a group of people that no matter what you believe about God, no matter what you believe about Jesus, no matter what you believe about faith, as a group of people, as the local church, we believe that we can make a difference wherever we are. And we can make a significant impact in places where it seems like there is just infinite darkness. And we can make a significant impact by stepping into brokenness that feels like it's not healable. And we can step into areas of the world that feels like it's impossible to do things. And that through ordinary people, just like you, we believe that God can do extraordinary things. Now, when you hear a story like that, it feels fairly distant, right? It feels like it's a little bit out there, it's a little bit far away, because we don't experience those kinds of things in northern Michigan so much, right? But the guy that you saw on the video, Chris is one of our lead pastors at our Clinton Township campus. He was talking about their experience over there, and when they went, the country's still in a lot of ways, at odds with each other, and there's war kind of constantly happening, there's constant conflict, and if you can imagine this, the community that you saw, right, the video that was kind of highlighting the community, there was this one area, but then there was this gated sort of area that's kind of just beyond what you saw in the video. Chris said that one night he's with the film crew, Mike, and a bunch of people with the team, and they start hearing gunshots right outside the gate. And, they were kind of curious, like, well, what is that? That's probably just far off. Somebody's probably hunting. And what they discovered through one of the people that was living there, that was one of the locals, is that there was actually one of those raids happening just down the way from where they were at the time that they were there. In fact, when Chris got back, I love this, Steve Andrews, he's our founding pastor. He goes, yeah, that's probably the most dangerous trip we've ever taken. And Chris goes, I wish you'd have probably told me that, before we went. That'd have been great. But it really was. What's happening over there is really devastating. And the beautiful part, though, is that through Reuben, through some of the global partnerships that we have over there, through people that are planting churches all over that area of the world, through Nicodemus' story, we're seeing people come to know Christ. We're seeing people come to know Christ that you would sit there and you think, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but God begins to change their hearts. In fact, over the last year, now this is crazy to think about, through partnerships that we have all over the world, Kensington has been a part of planning over 1,000 churches all over the world. Now just think about that for a second. Over 1,000 churches all over the world. And that's because of people like you who give, and that's for people like you who are part of this. And so when you came in, I believe you got a book. I want to show you this real quick. If you turn to page, I believe, 24 and 25 in your book, you're going to see a picture of this. I wanted to read this to you, really just to kind of get our minds thinking about this for just a second, then we're going to jump into the talk. But what we're doing in South Sudan, right? We'd say that your generosity brings hope to people in South Sudan. And then I want to read you this part. You can read along with me. I believe it's on page 25. It says, through our partnership, we're able to provide medical care to dozens of villages, along with food relief to the poorest of the poor, which spurs conversations about Jesus, provides opportunities for people to share the gospel. Now, we're able to do that because of people just like you who are part of this, who are part of giving, who are part of volunteering, part of going on trips like this, or part of all of those things. And so I just wanted to first off say thank you so much to those of you who give. Thank you so much to those of you who are partnering with us. We've been talking about year in giving for the last few weeks, and we know that we're able to do a lot of this because of the gifts that come in at the end of the year. And so for those of you who are give, we just wanted to say thank you so much. I challenged a lot of you last week to think about what would your year-end gift be? What would it be like for you? If you're an attender here, if you'd call Kensington home, what would it be like for you to sacrificially give so that we can do more of these kinds of things all over the world, so that we can do these things globally, we can do these things locally? What would it take for your family to sacrificially give? And a lot of you have been thinking about that. I've had conversations throughout the week with some of you, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for partnering with us in that way. So I want to go ahead and invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering. If you're first time, that sort of thing, you don't have to give. That's not a thing. We're not trying to get you to give. Unless you want to give to something that kind of feels beyond you, you can certainly do that. But there's a couple ways that you can do this. I want to walk you through this. You can give on the app. That's the way our family does it. You can give on our website. That's another way. Or text. All of those take about 15 to 30 seconds to do. You can also give in service as we're still trying to name these things, the blue bag pouches thing comes by. You can certainly do that as well. But we just wanted to say thank you so much for those of you who are partnering with us to be able to do what we do here locally, but also what we do all over the world. Now, today, with that video, it kind of sets us up to talk about a topic that is, I think, fascinating to talk about in the current state of our culture, right? When you think about politics, when you think about what's going on all over the world, you hear about North Korea, you hear about what's happening here in the States, you even hear about what's happening in Traverse City. There's at times this feeling of unrest. And there's at times this feeling of angst that we all have, and we have this kind of, is it going to be all right? And what about this or what about that? We all have sort of angst around different things. So what we're going to talk about today is a word that's found actually all over the Old Testament and all over the New Testament. And it's a word that every single one of us pursues at some point in our life, and that word is this. The word is peace. That at some point in your life, you hit a scenario, you hit a certain set of scenarios. For a lot of us, we find ourselves being informed to the point where we just desire to have peace at some point in our lives. We desire for the angst to kind of dissipate. We desire for, there not to be tension in the areas that we feel like there are tension. We desire there to be peace in our hearts, peace in our minds, and for us to go to sleep at night not having to worry about all the things. Am I right? There's something inside of us that has all that. So I'm going to need you to do this. I need you to take a big deep breath. Can you take a big deep breath for a second? Get your lungs filled with air, because I'm going to need you to help me out. All right, you can let it out. I'm going to need you to shout out a couple of things. And so we're not talking about you specifically, right? We're talking about everybody else. But I need you to help me kind of fill this out. What are some areas of our world that we feel angsty? That's not a word, but we're going to make it a word, right? What are some areas of our world that we feel angsty? Let me hear you shout it out. Somebody go for it. Children, amen. Anybody have toddlers? Then yes, children, right? All right, here we go. Children. What's another area? Money. Money. I won't do that again. All right, somebody else? One more time in the back. What'd you say? Everybody just stretch your hand. God, we just pray. No, just kidding. All right. In-laws, that's great. In-laws, yeah. Hopefully you're not sitting next to them. Anyway, somebody else. What else do we feel angsty about? Politics. All right, politics is another one. Anybody angsty about their fantasy football team? Anybody? No, I'm just shallow. Okay, politics. There we go. I'm going to put up fantasy football because right now I'm winning, and I got 2 games left. And I've never won anything about football in my life, so it's great. Somebody else. Work. Yes, work. Absolutely. Give me 2 more. What else do we feel angsty about? Marriage. Yeah, absolutely. Marriage. That's great. He's sleeping on the couch tonight. That's awesome. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I feel that. Yeah, somebody else. What else? One more. Give me one more. Health. That's a great one. Health is another one. Yeah, like, am I healthy? Should I have this Big Mac? Which that was my question last night, right? So we have all sorts of angst, right? And there's angst that happens all the time. Like, it can be at work. It can be with money. I love these. Fantasy football, that's just me. Your in-laws, right? Especially Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays. We all have angst. And there's angst that is like really big. There's angst that feels kind of small. But we all have some kind of angst. And what we desire is peace, right? We want in our hearts all of that to kind of be settled. We want the problem to dissipate. We just want to find peace. Now, again, throughout the Bible, there's all of these sorts of areas where it talks about this. And one of them is this, like, area of the Bible called Isaiah. Isaiah talks about a lot of things, and this may be a book that you've never read before. Isaiah talks about a lot of things, but one of the things that happens all throughout Isaiah, which is so interesting, is Isaiah points to what is to come and what is going to come in the future, which feels a little bit like, like fortune-telly kind of thing, but it's not really that. It's this idea that one day, he's kind of writing to a group of people who were expecting salvation, expecting this political salvation, expecting not to be slaves anymore, and he's writing around what the Savior would look like, and he's ultimately pointing to Jesus, and he's writing about what the Savior would look like, and here's what the writer says in Isaiah, I believe it's chapter 9. Here's what it says. It says, for to us a child is born. So he's talking about when Jesus would be born. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given. Now, I love this, right? When you hear the Christmas story, you typically don't hear a lot about this, right? To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. Now, think about this imagery for just a second. Isaiah is pointing to Jesus, the coming Savior of the world. And what he leads with is he's going to be a child that is born, and then on his shoulders is going to be the weight of the government and the politics and what is oppressive to you and slavery. That ultimately all of the things that feel weighty to you, and he's talking to this group of people, all the things that feel weighty to you, he's going to put that on his shoulders, and he is going to carry it on our behalf. Goes on. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father. And then read this with me. What does it say? Prince of what? Prince of Peace. Now we read that and we think about peace in the terms that we typically think about peace. This dissipation of the tension and the conflict and the angst. But the people reading this would not have thought about it necessarily in those terms. Now, when Isaiah was writing this, the people that he's writing to aren't necessarily just thinking about the dissipation of the problem or the angst around these types of things. The people that are reading what Isaiah writes are a group of people who look at peace in a completely different lens. Not the dissipation of tension, but something that is bigger. In fact, we could say it this way. The peace is not the absence of conflict, but rather the presence of God's goodness. Now that feels weird, especially if you're not a follower of Jesus. You're like, hey, that's great, but I want the problem solved, right? Real quick, how many of you are like type A personalities? You're like me. Anybody like type A? And you had a list before you got up this morning? Yeah, that's great. All right, well, let's pray for you too. I'm kidding. All right, so we want the problem solved. You got a work issue, you want it solved. You got a money issue, you want it solved with more money, right? You want it solved. But the writer who is writing with, Isaiah is talking about Prince of Peace not being a Savior who comes and dissipates all of the pain. Not a Savior who comes and dissipates all of the conflict. But peace being founded and rooted in a Savior who comes and brings the goodness and the fullness and the completeness of God to whatever problem is in front of us. Fast forward thousands of years, and then Jesus is talking to a group of people before he's going to be killed. And these are the group of people that are close to him and have been walking this road with him. And Jesus knows what is to come. Jesus knows that death and torture is to come. And he knows that the people that are around him will one day probably not be standing around him going, oh, they're probably not going to do that. That when pain comes and problems come, they're going to, in fact, run and scatter. And so he primes the pump to let them know that trouble is coming. And then we find this word peace show up again. Here's what Jesus says. He's talking to this group of disciples or closest followers. He says, very truly I tell you, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will feel pain when other people feel joy when I die. You will grieve, but your grief will turn to joy. Now, when you read this and you actually read what the text is saying, that doesn't feel like it makes any sense, right? And if peace is the dissipation of issues and problems and conflict, this, in fact, makes zero sense. But when Jesus is referred to as the Prince of Peace, when he comes to bring this fullness and completeness of God, he's not just talking about that dissipation. He goes on and says this. He says, the time is coming, and in fact has come, when you will be scattered. When peace will feel like it's no more for you. When you will dissipate. When I am at my darkest hour, you will run. When you will be scattered, each to your own home. You will leave me all alone, yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. And when you read this, you get, oh, no, okay. He begins to paint a picture of what peace actually comes from. And again, it's not the dissipation of all the problems. Yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. That is this shalom, or this peace that he's referring to. And then he goes on and he says this. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. And then he gives the most inspirational message to a group of people who are going to watch him die. He says, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. You're like, sign me up for that, you know. In this world you will have pain, you will have trouble. You will not have what other people view as peace. But take heart or be encouraged. And then he gives the foundation for all of Christianity in one phrase. He gives the foundation of what we sang about earlier, and what a beautiful name. He gives the foundation of what will change the world for thousands of years, and are why we meet in this building, and they also meet outside in South Sudan, and why Nicodemus' story is what it is. He gives one phrase that lays the foundation. He says, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Now, if you're not a follower of Jesus, I'm going to tell you this. This is the part that you should wrestle with more than anything else. Right? It's not whether does Jesus exist or not. There's that. It's not whether Jesus rise from the grave. I think you should wrestle with that. But the question for you really is, do you believe that Jesus came and he lived the life that he said he lived, and that he is who he said that he was and is, but that he had the power to fully overcome the darkness that was in the world? That I have overcome all sin. I have overcome all the pain. I have overcome all of that on your behalf. Peace is not found in a genie who takes away your problems. Peace is found in a loving Father, the God of the universe, who enters into the brokenness and is with you in it. In fact, we could say it this way. The peace demands us to refocus from the problem to a person, and that person is Jesus. That in the darkest moments, in the most difficult moments, in the pain that we feel, in the angst that we feel around all of these kinds of things, in a world where it feels like upheaval all around, in a world where you're worried about North Korea and the economy and presidents, and you're worried about Senate, and you're worried about #MeToo, and you're worried about all of those kinds of things in our world. And you're worried about what's happening in your work and your family and your marriage. When you're worried about all of those things, at the end of the day, it's not that God should come to remove the problems. In fact, as you read through the New Testament, oftentimes he doesn't. He uses people within the problems and then promises to be with them every step of the journey to empower them to bring about the change that he's called them to make. Now, most of you know I'm a relatively new dad, and by relatively, I mean like 2 years in, right? So it's newer for me. And he hasn't really been sick yet. So we haven't had like the big sick moment, until about 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Then he got cough, and he had a fever, and he was like throwing up. And when it comes to me, I don't know how many of you like this. When it comes to me, I never go to the doctor. I should go to the doctor more. My limb could be hanging off. I'm like, you know what? I'll sleep on it. I'm fine. Like that's me. But if my wife gets sick, like she has a cough, I'm like, we're going to the ER now. Let's go right now. And then my son gets sick, and it's kind of the same thing. So he was sick. He had a fever. And so I don't know, it was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So we decided to go to urgent care rather than the ER because that felt like the wiser decision, even though I was, let's go to the ER. We show up to urgent care, and we're there for like 2 hours. And we're sitting there, and when we came in, his heart was racing way, way, way too fast, like super fast, And you get that look in a doctor's eyes. You ever seen this? Where the doctor's like, he looks a little concerned, and you're like, that's not what I'm looking for, in that moment. And the nurses come in, and they do all the tests, and then they start saying, like, you know what? I don't know that the instrument read it right. They said that like 3 times. I'm like, you've said that 3 times, right? Should we just get a new one? Like, let's just get a new instrument. Let's just try a new one. Maybe we just do that, And they couldn't get his heart rate to come down. The fever started to come down, but they couldn't get the heart rate to come down. And so the last thing you ever want to hear, like the urgent care, is like, hey, we think you should go to the ER. Here's a paper. You go. Now, there's something inside of me that, like, has Mr. Miyagi angst, and then, like fear angst, and then, like 4-year-old girl screaming in the shower angst. Like, this is me all at once, wrapped up into one moment. So we get in. My wife is super calm because she's a better human than I am. And I took this picture, I think it was at the ER. This is Emily and Henry, right? So this is like after all the tests. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm taking this moment for several hours. We were there for about 3 hours. And I'm looking at this picture, and I thought to myself, or I'm looking at this moment happen. I finally took a picture of it because I didn't want to forget it. And I thought to myself, this is the moment when, like, the epitome of most of my worry in the last year has come to fruition. That I have no control, that I can't fix this, that I don't have any peace, it's out of my hands, and the doctor's instruments aren't working. You know what I mean? Like, that sort of thing is all happening at once. And so we go to the ER. We can go to the next slide. We go to the ER, and we get there, and they do more tests, and they do more tests. But on the way over, we're driving, I think from, I don't know, where are we at? We're downtown, right by the river, and then it was the night where Santa came, so it was, lots of people were there. So I didn't say any bad words. I was just going fast, really. And so, but we prayed on the way. And I'll never forget probably this moment in our marriage and with our kid. I was praying, and I remember during the prayer saying, almost reminding God, which was always fun, like reminding God, like, God, he is yours, and you are in control of this. Now, there's something about that moment that if you're not a follower of Jesus, you don't get to say because you don't believe that, right? At the end of the day, whatever it is that's out there beyond you, maybe it's the doctors, maybe it's you, maybe it's whatever it is, but you don't believe that there's something necessarily bigger than you that can control that, which I would say then there's really no way for you to find that kind of peace. It comes from the moment when you are holding on so tight to something, and then you open your hands up and you let it go. Now, on that car ride, I felt all the angst, and I prayed the prayer, and I said, God, he is yours. And when I did that, there was something that happened in my heart that felt like it broke, and a weight just kind of lifted. And it wasn't because the problem was fixed, because his heart rate was still like 185. But we're going over to the hospital, and I remember thinking, I'm not in control. They're not in control, God. You are. That God, when it comes to my work and the things that I can't control, God, I can't make that happen. But peace is not found in me making that happen. It's found in you. When it comes to my marriage, there's all of this thing that I can't feel like I fixed, and we have the conversation, but we still keep circling around the conversation. And there are changes that you have to make, but at the same time, it's like, God, I give you all of it. Now change my heart through it. When it comes to finances, there's the same sort of thing. There's a component of this that you control, but there's a component of it that you have to say, God, I trust you in every bit of it. I come to you open-handed, asking you to do what only you can do. Now, Christmas, in the heart of Christmas, is that Jesus came into the world as a baby, as the Prince of Peace. Not through the dissipation of all of our problems, but through the promise that God loves us enough to be present within every bit of it. So for those of you who are here and you're going, I feel disconnected to my kids and I'm an empty nester and I don't know how to solve it because I can't control it, your posture is, God, here's my open hand. I trust you. Those of you who are going into the Christmas season and you've lost a job, you're going, God, I'm going into it open-handed, not believing that you're just going to fix it, but believing that you're going to walk with me through it and do something. God, I'm coming to you with an open hand. You're going to Christmas this year and you don't really want to be around family for Christmas. God, you heal the brokenness that I can't fix on my own. I'm coming to you open-handed. Do something in me. The promise and beauty of Christmas is that we get to celebrate the fact that God ushered in his presence in such a powerful way, and we could experience the kind of life change he desired for us from the beginning. So to end our service today, what I want you to do, for those of you who are not followers of Jesus, is I want you to think about your 1, 2, 3, 7, 12 things that are like this, right? Whatever that is. And for those of you who are followers of Jesus, I want you to think about your 1, 2, 7, or 12 things that are like this. And the song that they're going to sing in just a second is a song called Lord Remind Me. From Black Friday shopping and Christmas presents and cutting down a tree and getting it up and everything that you're doing to celebrate and get around Christmas. What I want you to do over these next few minutes is just pause. And I want you to acknowledge whatever angst that's currently in your life, but then at the same time remind yourself that though that angst may feel like it is bigger than you, it is not bigger than the one that is within you. I wanted to read these lyrics to you from the song. It says, Lord, remind me that the cry of faith is so simple, and it's the greatest song in heaven's hymnal, because it's Christmas, and I want to remember. I want to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you this holiday season. And then we're going to sing this song, and I'm going to ask you just to spend a few moments reflecting on that. Let's pray together. Father, for some of us, we walked in today, and some of us, like other people would never know that we have angst in our hearts and in our lives. Some of us, people would never know the struggles that are currently going on. And some of us just need to pause and be reminded that peace isn't this dissipation of all of the problems. That peace is ultimately found in the presence of a Savior. It's provided a way for us to be fully and 100% connected to our Heavenly Father. So for the person who's striving here in the room to solve all, the person who feels like they have all the pressure on their shoulders to fix it, for the person who's in this room and Christmas isn't an exciting season, it feels difficult. The person who has no idea that in the next week or 2 weeks or month or 2 months that something's going to come, it's going to be at the forefront of their angst and emotions. God, let us rest in these next few moments and being reminded that a child came into the world as the Prince of Peace. And that child brought the promise of the presence of the living God into our hearts, in our lives, in our minds, and into every circumstance that we're going to face. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
When the children play on Christmas Day and snow is flung, when I feel I haven't had a friend since I was young, and I'm feeling tired of myself and everyone, Lord, remind me, Lord, remind me that the shepherds heard the angels break the silence in the field, that the wise men found a baby and they could not help but kneel, that the one who heard our weeping became a child in manger sleeping. Lord, remind me, 'cause it's Christmas and I want to remember.
When I hear the news and hear another war's begun, and I wonder if God's on the side of either one.
I hear bullet, nail, or handcuff, he bore all of them. And in the light, my heart's as dark as anyone. The shepherds heard the angels break the silence in the field. That the wise men found a baby and they could not help but kneel. That the one who heard our weeping became a child in manger sleeping. Lord, remind me, 'cause it's Christmas and I want to remember. Tell me how he loves me, tell me how he wants me, tell me the story like I've never heard before. And I'll sing it like the angels singing, with my whole heart singing to him who's worth 1,000 sons and more. In the highest glory, in the lowest glory, that shines when nothing seems to shine at all. Glory in the highest glory, in the lowest glory, Emmanuel. Glory in the highest glory, in the lowest glory, Emmanuel, Emmanuel. Lord, remind me, Lord, remind me that the paralytic rose and stood up proud on his own feet. That the thief who hung beside you is with you now and waits for me. That the cry of faith so simple, the greatest song in heaven's hymnal, Lord, remind me, 'cause it's Christmas and I want to remember.
What a powerful song. In this moment, I just want to invite you guys to stand in just in a response to just kind of all the images, the message, everything. I'd love to lead us in a familiar carol, and it's called "Oh Come Let Us Adore." And I love the lines of it. The first line is real simple. It's just acknowledging, oh, come let us adore him, who Jesus is, and what he's going to do and be in our lives. And then the next line is for you, we give you, for you alone are worthy, is what it says. And it's just declaring God's worth and his value. And the last line is, you deserve all the glory. Just acknowledging his value and how our response is to worship. So wherever you're at in your faith journey, I just encourage you, let these words speak to you. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord. Let's sing that one more time. Oh, come. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ the Lord, for you alone are worthy. those that feel comfortable singing, feel free to just belt it out at this time. We're going to sing, we give you all the glory. We give you all the
Here's what I'd love to say to you is, if you're someone who's like, you know what, when it comes to the Christmas season, I feel some of that angst and I feel some of those struggles. We love to talk to you about that, and we love to just connect with you. And so we have a couple of environments out in the lobby that we would just love to meet you. So if it's your first time, you're like, hey, I'd love to talk to somebody about some of that, you can go to Starting Point. That's a great place just to kind of learn more about us, but also connect with someone about those things. And then if you're someone who, again, is running into this Christmas season and you're like, you know what, I would just love to talk with somebody and pray with somebody, we have kind of an area out in the lobby where you can just talk to somebody and they can pray with you right out there in the lobby, and we'd love to connect with you out there. Just a couple of things to remind you on. If you haven't got your Christmas tickets yet, again, they're free. You can totally get those. That's really just an RSVP to one of our Christmas services, since it's our biggest kind of services of the year. We'd love for you to do that. And then also next week, we're continuing this series. Right before we go into our Christmas Eve services, we got one more of these next week that we'd love to invite you back to. So thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to learn more about our global partners or just more about us in general, we would love to encourage you to go to our website at kensingtonchurch.org. Also, if you are interested in coming to our Christmas services, Christmas tickets are now available. Again, they are free and they are available at any of our 8 campuses. We'd love for you to check that out at kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas to just help all of our campuses better prepare for your arrival. Again, too, thank you so much for following us on social media, on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter accounts, and we hope that you will continue to do so. And also join us next week as we continue our series, The Heart of Christmas. Have a great day. everyone. My name is Jen, and thank you so much for joining us live. We are so glad that you're here this morning. If you're not already, we would love to invite you to follow us on our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And for those of you who have been following us, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing our content. Thank you so much for just sharing the light on social media. We're so thankful for you. We have a fantastic service planned for you today with an opener that you are not going to want to miss. We're also going to have some worship, and we even have the opportunity to hear from one of our global partners. So we really hope that you enjoy this service, and we will see you back afterwards.
So, to honor him, when we I played my drum for him.
Amen. Let's give it up for them one more time. You guys are amazing. Anybody else want to learn drums after that? Well, welcome you guys. My name is Jen and I'm on staff here. And whether this is your first time here or your 100th time here, I just want to say welcome. We are so glad that you could be with us this morning. Before we dive into our day, I really quick just want to go over a couple things with you. First of all, if you were not here with us last week and you didn't receive one of these, we have our year-end Christmas gift booklets. It highlights a bunch of our ministries and a bunch of the areas which we fund to just shine a light out into the world. So if you have not received this yet, we really encourage you to grab one. Patrick will be going over this later. Also, too, as you walked in, you may have noticed there was a PG-10 rating on this day. We have a video that we will be learning a little bit about one of our global partners, and some of the content may or may not be suitable for kids. So we want to give you the opportunity to make that choice, and if you don't want your kids to watch it, we have a fantastic environment back in K-Kids with programming designed just for your kids. So, anybody else a little bit terrified by how quickly Christmas is coming this year? Anyone else not do their Christmas shopping yet? So we've got our Christmas services, coming up soon. And to give you a little sneak peek at what that's going to look like, we want you to watch this.
He said it's in the town of David. It shouldn't be much further.
We need to keep following the star.
It appears to have stopped over in that direction.
Come this way, but be very quiet. Mary's very tired.
I hope you're hungry. The chili's been cooking all day.
Did you bring the spices?
I bring red pepper flakes.
Cayenne pepper.
And cumin. We come bearing the gift of unleavened cornbread.
So
Did you put beans in it this time?
I did.
Doesn't sit well with my
Oh, well,
we're gonna have to
we'll
fill
send you
up
out
10,000
after.
miles.
You can. Anybody have Tums?
Plot twist. So if you're wondering what all that is about, this year at Christmas, we're going to kind of be diving into the idea of what would our life and our world look like if Jesus had never been born. And it's going to be just a really interesting service. We've got great music planned for the day, and we would love to invite you and your family to come join us. And actually, there's a few things regarding the service that we'd like to let you know about. Number one is with our Christmas services, we're expecting so many people to come in that we would like to ask you if you would go to our website at kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas and get your free Christmas tickets. They mean absolutely nothing to you, but what it does is it helps us to better prepare for you. And secondly, it's that time of year where everyone's kind of looking for a church in some sense or another. So we would love to ask you to invite friends, invite family, invite anybody who might be interested. These services are going to be designed with your guests in mind as well. And then thirdly, if you've been coming for several weeks, we'd really like to ask you to come one and then serve one. And what that helps us to do is just to create a great environment and a great experience for all those that are coming, and also for you as well. So our Christmas services this year, we have 5 services. We have 2 on Saturday, December 23rd at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And then we have 2 more on Christmas Eve morning at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Plus, we even have a special render service that'll be happening at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. So, with all that said, we're about to jump into our service. Patrick's got a great message planned for us. But before we do that, I'd love to invite you to stand up. And we have some people coming in late, so if you could crunch into the center of your sections. And while you're doing that, I'd love for you to ask your neighbor what their favorite Christmas carol is. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but one of my favorite Christmas carols is a song called Joy to the World. And we're going to lead that song with you guys this morning. So wherever you're at on your faith journey, we just want to encourage you. Feel free to engage, scope out the lyrics, and sing along if you feel comfortable. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven and nature sing. And heaven, nature sing. Say it again.
marvelous wonders of his love.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. Just your voices. The name of Jesus. What a beautiful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. The sin was great, your love was greater. And what could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus.
on the journey. Or just sung a song about what God has done in Joy to the World. We sang a song just now about who God is and what a beautiful name. And we're going to declare what we're believing God to do here in this next song called No Other Name. I just want to encourage you to sing it with us. The earth will shake and tremble before Him. Chains will break as heaven and earth sing. Holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Would you sing that with us? The earth, come on, will shake and tremble before Him. Chains will break as heaven and earth sing. Holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Would you sing the earth? Oh, and the earth will shake and tremble before Him. Chains will break as heaven and earth sing. Holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Would you declare that again? Sing the earth will shake and tremble before Him. Chains will break as heaven and earth. We sing, holy is the name, oh, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Lift up our eyes and see the King has come. Out of the world, singing out for us. Oh, there is no other name, there is no other name. Jesus Christ our God. Seated on high, defeated one. Mountains bow down as we lift Him up. There is no other name, there is no other name, there is no other name, Jesus.
Now, the reason that song really kind of stirs so much emotion in those of us who believe that is that we believe that the God of the universe loves us so much that He wanted a relationship with us and that He really is the light of the world, reaching out into the darkness and into the brokenness and calling us back to Himself. Thanks so much for singing with us. You can go ahead and have a seat. We're so glad that you are here today, and if it's your very first time, we just want to say welcome. Over the last few minutes, what you've really got to experience is what we believe about God, right? You got to experience what we believe about God, who He said He is, and what He would say about us. And that's really kind of this perfect picture of what really Christianity is all about, what we believe life should be all about, and what that looks like. Now, today is going to be a special day because what we're doing is we're going to be talking about something that's really at the root of every single one of our hearts, and it's the desire that really we all have for ourselves, for the people that we love, people that we care about, but also for our world. What we're going to be talking about today is this idea and this concept of peace, and how do we achieve that, and how do we find peace in our own hearts and in our own lives. And so to really get us thinking in that direction, we have a story of a man named Nicodemus who is on the other side of the world, and his story is this amazing, beautiful story of brokenness and triumph and what God can really do through a life who is fully submitted to Him, and how we can find peace that feels like is unattainable. So let's watch this video together, and then we'll go from there.
Has there ever been a time in history where we are more immediately inundated with news that tends to bring us to despair or to give up hope? Do you realize that when you invest in a year-end Christmas gift at Kensington, that the opposite is true? That you're actually seeing hope and joy and love and peace come to the world? We're seeing that in so many countries in the world, explosive church planting movements. And probably none is more amazing or more miraculous than what is happening in the new country of South Sudan. Reuben Mariakal, our partner, and his friends in South Sudan are putting their life on the line each day. They literally don't know from day to day if they're going to live or die. But in the midst of this, overwhelming peace is coming to the world. And so today, as you watch this amazing story of this unlikely hero, a man named Nicodemus, realize that you and I get to be a part of something that is so unlikely and so amazing. When you give, we get to be a part of what Jesus Christ is doing in the world.
In my country, peace is rare. People are so used to fighting that many have given up hope that things can change. But God says, blessed are the peacemakers. And sometimes those that bring peace are the ones that no one expects.
I'm in South Sudan, the newest country in the world, and it's located in East Central Africa. And this whole region has been in conflict and ravaged by war in the past 60 years. And actually, it's not getting better, it's getting a whole lot worse. In fact, the compound that we're staying in just a few weeks ago had a bunch of rebels that had come through with guns and threatening violence, and everyone there just did not know what was going to happen. Fueled by racism, political strife, religious persecution, the price of the conflict has been very high. There's actual active landmines just a few feet away from where children are playing. Everyone here lives in a state of uncertainty, not knowing what tomorrow will hold. They all live in fear and long for peace.
When you see a man having marks on the head or the shoulder, that one means the number of the people that a person has killed during the war. And then when you see the women, you see some women are having marks. That one also shows the husband of the woman has killed many men. They share that glory in the name of husband. So she acts like the husband is an hero. My testimony is about my sister's son. The child grew at my home for more than 10 years. When he was making the 12th year, the child was taken back to the village. He was transferred to the cattle camp. When he reached the cattle camp, they went to the field where the cows are grazing. Then another tribe that used to attack the Toposa tribe called Boya came and raided the cows. And then on the process of raiding, the child was caught by a group of more than 10 men. They used a knife, then they slaughtered the boy. The people took me there using a motorbike to the place where the child was killed. So I went and I saw the body of the child lying on the ground. One hand was cut, then the other hand also was cut. The leg was cut. The head is far away from the body. I was not happy. I became very hungry. So I buried the boy, and then I came back to the village. So I wanted to take one gun to follow the men where they have gone. My aim was to go and clear them all. As you see this mark on my face, these 3 men have killed 3 people, and I was used to it. What was in my body, in my heart, was only to have a revenge. I was only aiming for a revenge. Then one gun which was left in the village was hidden somewhere because they knew that I loved the boy, and my aim was, if I am to get a gun, I was going to clear even 50 men in that place. So I grew very annoyed, in which I was even almost to hang myself when the people went and hide the gun. The only way was to go and hang myself, but the people went and advised me.
Tormented by the death of his nephew and unable to find his gun, Nicodemus reached a level of despair that led him into considering taking his own life. It was while searching for a weapon in a nearby village that he ran into Reuben Miracle, who would eventually become his mentor and spiritual advisor.
The life that Nicodemus had before getting Christ, his aim was to be the hero of the village. And being a hero is to raid as many tribes, the surrounding tribes as possible, is to kill as many people as possible. But once he encountered Christ, there was a radical change in his heart.
Other people went and advised me until they brought me back to Kopeta here, whereby I met with Pastor Reuben and then with other believers. They had to advise me and say, that is not the way. Try to have peace in your heart. So I went and I stayed for more than 20 days until I forgive those people. Christ replaced this problem in me. I had to have peace again. As I am now, I'm going always to the church. I am also advising others who have the same grievances like the way I used to have.
So I see Nicodemus, and he no longer views the other tribes as enemies. He views them as objects of the grace of Christ, and they're candidates of heaven. And that's why he has now the desire to reach out to the other villages as his friends.
Since his encounter with Jesus, Nicodemus has been radically transformed. Under Reuben's guidance, he now plants churches in the very fields where the Toposa, Dinga, and other neighboring tribes have violently clashed for centuries. Armed with nothing more than the gospel and a motorcycle, he brings peace to a region that many believed impossible to reach.
So we have 2 communities in our location here. So we have the Dinga community and then the Toposa community. These 2 communities are very hostile to each other. So when we planted the church here, the Toposa and the Dinga were able to meet together. So what they did, they have to reconcile. Those who accepted Christ, they were able to meet together, and then they worship together. They became one. But in other areas whereby the church is not planted, the war still continues. Many blood is being shedded every time. But we saw really a church can bring peace in a community.
The mission of our ministry is letting the light occupy the land. And we see darkness manifesting itself in different forms. The greatest is spiritual darkness. There is intellectual darkness. There is darkness of hatred and violence. There is socio-economic darkness. And we see, as we are in this land, our ministry is to become hands and feet of Jesus and shine the light and let the light occupy the land. I see Nicodemus maybe finding his fellow warriors in the other village as friends. Even his friends who are raiders, they were 10 in number. His gang of 10 men, and 6 of them he has evangelized and they have come to Christ. When all these guys who are warriors come, they are now warriors for Christ. They are not taking the spears and guns, they are taking the gospel to the next tribes. I see there's hope, and I can see changes will be here in years to come.
Jesus means everything to me. In the first place, I was lost. I was a sinner. I was a killer. I was robbing. I used to do many things which are not right. But when Christ came into my heart, I have now hope of being with the Lord.
I think when Christ is taken out of the equation, there's no hope in this country. I mean, governments can come with policies, but that cannot transform the hearts of people. It takes only the power of Christ to transform the hearts of people. If it's just empty philanthropy, helping people and doing that, there could never be hope. But when we are preaching Christ, who is the Prince of Peace, I'm sure ultimately the Prince of Peace will be able to bring peace to this country, so there is hope.
One of the things that I love so deeply about our church, both here in Traverse City, Metro Detroit, Orlando, is that no matter what you believe about God, no matter where you are on the faith spectrum, what you find in our communities is a group of people who believe that we're to live for things that are beyond ourselves. That God can use an individual, a group of individuals, to make such a significant impact on the world that it leaves the world different and it leaves the world changed. And that's not because of us, and it's not because we have answers, and it's not because we figured things out. It's because that we believe that when Jesus Christ changes a life, when the message of the gospel is spread to the most broken areas of the world, that message and that person of Jesus can change the hearts of men like Nicodemus, who when you hear a story think you deserve to have the revenge that you're seeking. But through laying that down and seeking a kind of peace that is beyond human understanding, all of a sudden people's hearts and lives are changed, communities are changed, and areas of the world are changed. Now, to those of you who call Kensington home, I want to say this to you. I want to say thank you so much. Because that's possible because of you. Because of ordinary people who go on trips, because of ordinary people who give money, because of ordinary people who decide that they're going to live beyond themselves, because of ordinary people who say, I'm not just going to get up and do a 9-to-5 job, and I'm not just going to pursue the American dream only, that I'm going to pursue a life that is worth living, and a life that's worth living is when we give our lives away. So I want to say thank you so much for that. Now we've been talking about year-end giving here, and oftentimes when we talk about giving, it's You think about it in terms of what we do on a weekend, and that's important. And you think about what we do locally, which is also very important. But really, when you're giving to help projects just like that happen all over the world. This past year, through Kensington and our partnerships all over the world, we have planted, this is crazy, planted over 1,000 churches in places like Sudan. We've planted 1,000 churches in areas that are difficult to get into. We have given hundreds and hundreds of Bibles to places like Afghanistan, where it is extraordinarily difficult to get them in. We're actually like smuggling the Bibles in. No, it's just an amazing thing. And again, all of that's possible because of people just like you who give. Now, at the end of the year is when a lot of the money for those things come in, all right? A significant part of any nonprofit's budget, but specifically the church's budget, come in at the end of the year. So we've been talking about year-end giving, and I think what I would say to you, and I've said this for a couple of weeks now, is we have a big challenge for you. That if you call Kensington home, part of living beyond yourself is going and volunteering and being a part of those things, but it's also giving. And so I challenged you last week, for those of you who call this place home, to like think about and pray about what would God be calling you to give sacrificially? What is God calling you and your family to really give up so that you can give towards projects just like what we're doing in South Sudan? And so when you came in, I think you got a booklet. I wanted to show this to you real quick. The booklet that you gave, you'll turn to page 25. You're actually going to get sort of a glimpse of this. I wanted to read this to you. So if you want to pull it out, I wanted to read you this part of the book because I think it's extraordinarily helpful in understanding what you're giving to when you give to our community here. When we come to South Sudan, this is one of, I think I said it wrong last week. We have 11 global partners. This is one of 11 global partners that we have. South Sudan, we say this, that your generosity brings hope to people in South Sudan. Through our partnership, we're able to provide medical care to dozens of villages, along with food relief to the poorest of the poor, which spurs on conversations about Jesus and provides opportunities to share the gospel in these areas of the world. And so what I would ask you is to really consider, like, what is it that you are giving financially to that's bigger than yourselves? And then we kind of say this around here too. We believe what we do is extraordinarily important, but we also want something for you. And so what I would tell you is if you're not coming to the end of the year and trying to figure out sacrificially how to give somewhere, I think you need to figure that out. And even if you don't want to give it to a church, and even if you don't want to give it to Kensington, we're going to just challenge you, give it somewhere. Because what it's going to do is it's going to free up your heart, and it's going to call something out in you that really kind of moves you beyond yourself. And I think that's where God ultimately wants us to be. So I want to go ahead and invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering today. And there's a couple ways that you can give. And if you're unfamiliar with giving here, there's a few ways you can do that. You can give on the app, you can give on the website, or you can give through a text message. Those are super easy ways to do it. Those take between 15 and 30 seconds to give, or you can give in service. You can just put it right in the pouch. Oh, I hate that word. You can put it right in the basket thing that's moving down the road. You can do that as well. And for those of you who are part of this, again, we just wanted to say thank you for being a part of what we're doing here. Now, as you heard earlier, as we saw in the video, what we're talking about today is this word called peace. And I think that's something that all of us really strive for and hope for, right? We all want peace in our lives. No one woke up this morning, got out of bed and said, I hope I don't have peace today. That's just not what we do. We all want and desire peace. But the truth of the matter is that most of us have experienced some level of angst. So real quick, how many of you play fantasy football? Do we have any fantasy football players out there? How many of you are making it to the playoffs? Am I the only one in the room? Yeah, I am. What now? Yeah, anyway. Yeah, I've never played before. So this is my first year playing fantasy football. It's me right now and the Birmingham lead pastor. You're going down. Anyway, so I'm excited about this because I'm just not that person that plays. So when it comes to these things, there's this level of angst that we have in our lives. Can you hear me now? There we go. There's this level of angst that we have in our lives. Now, there's really dumb things like that we get all amped up about. So you have things like fantasy football. You have things that really don't matter, but you also have things that really do matter. So I need a little crowd participation, right? Can you take a big deep breath for me? Take a big deep breath. Get it in, fill those lungs, let it out. Now, I'm going to need you to shout out some of the things that you feel like maybe you or other people have angst about. So let me hear you real quick. What are some areas we have angst? Go. Money. Money. I'm just kidding. I won't sing anymore. Money. That's a good one. Money's a great one. What else? What else we got? One more time. God, right? We have angst about God. Like, God, where are you at? You should show up here. Absolutely. What else? Politics. So we put that real big. It was politics. Can you hear me? There we go. I feel like it was going out. Yeah. Job. Yeah, job stuff. That's a big one, right? Am I making enough money? Am I going to have it at the beginning of the year? Am I getting a bonus? Am I getting a bonus? Anyway, so what else? What else we got? Health. Health is a good one. Yeah, that's really good. I was thinking about that last night at 11:30 with my chicken McNuggets. Somebody else? Talk about that later. Anyway, food, baby. Anyway, what else? Relationships. Yep, that's good. Girl, what your MySpace is. Anyway, some of you will get that later and you'll judge me. That's all right. What else? A couple more. What else? Schedules. Yeah, schedule. All right. Kids. All right, 2 more and then we're done. 2 more and then we're done. What else? Health. Yeah, that's a house. Is there a house? Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, I worry about my house with snow blowers and stuff. Yep, that's good. One more. Future. That's a great one. Future. Let's put that right here. All right, so we all have these like specific angsts in our lives that we're thinking about. Now, the truth of the matter is, if you're really honest with yourself, there's something inside of you that just kind of wishes there was this God genie, right? This God genie that would come and just wipe away all of this stuff, right? Like if the God genie could come and just say, hey, if you could just make all of this work, if you could just give me more money, if you could just make sure that my future's where it needs to be, if you could just kind of let me know what my future's going to be, right? All the single ladies said. I'm just kidding. All right, so you got that, right? You got job stuff. You could help me out here. And then, you have all these sorts of things. And we want God just to figure out for us and then solve the problem. And we believe this, that if God would do that, then ultimately we would, in fact, find peace. And so we live in this tension of believing that, God, if you're up there, then you should solve the problem. And if you don't solve the problem, are you really up there? And if I'm really going to achieve peace, what that means is there's going to be this dissipation of all of the conflict that is in my life. Now, the problem with that is that you, by yourself, probably aren't going to solve the politics thing on your own. You, by yourself, may or may not solve the money thing on your own. If you're in a relationship, you know that you probably won't solve that on your own. There are things about this that are bigger than you. There are things that are outside of your control, which means that most of us live in a constant state of not having some level of peace in our lives. Now, the fascinating thing, if you read through the Old Testament, you read through the New Testament, you read through the Bible, what you find is this word peace shows up over and over and over and over and over again. It shows up in the Christmas story. It shows up in the Gospels where people are writing about the early church. It shows up in writings about what the church should be like. It shows up in narratives about what it all looks like. Peace is found all over the Bible, and there's this expectation in Christianity. Now, don't miss this. There's an expectation in Christianity that you should be able to live within the tension and still have peace. Now, if you're a skeptic of Christianity, I'm going to tell you, like, right off the bat, like type A personality, if you're like me, that makes no sense, right? Like, if you're a skeptic, I think one of the most compelling arguments against Christianity would be to go, hey, Christianity writes all the time about peace without the resolution of the conflict that caused the problem in the first place. I think that's brilliant. Now, the thing about the scriptures is this, that when you read through what the writer said in the Old Testament, when you read through what the writer said in the New Testament, you begin to find that this idea of peace is often not what we have embraced in the Western world. Now, there's a writer in the Old Testament, you get this area of the Bible called Isaiah. Isaiah is interesting because what Isaiah does is it constantly begins to point to the future of what is coming. And during these writings, it's written to a specific group of people who were looking at their political plight. They were looking at their socioeconomic sort of thing. They were looking at where they were. They were looking at slavery and looking to a Savior to come and do this kind of thing to all their problems. In fact, one of the biggest tensions when Jesus shows up on the scene is that people expected him just to solve everything and oftentimes solve it through violence. Now, when Isaiah is writing about this, he actually points to the birth of this Savior that they were looking for. And when he points to the birth, he uses these adjectives to describe who this Savior was going to be. Here's what he says, Isaiah chapter 9, it says this. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and I love this, and the government will be on his shoulders. Now, when you read this quick, you kind of pass over that. You don't think about that too much, right? The government will be on his shoulders. The powers that be will be on his shoulders. The weight of the world will be on the shoulders of this child. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and then say it with me, Prince of Peace. Now, I love this. The weight of the world is going to be on his shoulders. And the problems of the government, the slavery pieces of this, all the angst that surrounds that will be on his shoulders. But he will be the Prince of Peace. Now, the understanding of peace to this group of people was different, right? It wasn't that all the problems were dissipated. The understanding was really centered around this word shalom. And the understanding of peace begins like this. And it's not that all the problems dissipate. It's that through the problems, the very presence of God and the fullness and the completeness that comes from God is found in the individual. That you could experience life the way that God wanted you to experience it. That relationship with God is possible through the Savior that would come into the world in the form of a baby. The Prince of Peace. It's kind of like this. Is that peace is not the absence of the conflict, but rather the presence of God's goodness within it. Now, the beautiful part about this is when you say the Prince of Peace, it means that this child entering into the world, the Savior entering the world, was ushering in the very presence of God, the very fullness of God that the world needed. Not to solve all the problems like a genie, but to come in and say, I am with you like a loving Father through every step of the journey. And when you fast forward hundreds of years, you find Jesus with his closest followers just before he's going to be killed and tortured and crucified and suffocated on a tree. And his closest followers have no idea exactly what's coming. They don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And then Jesus paints this picture of what's to come. And the words that he says are around this idea of peace in the midst of a level of angst that you and I will probably never feel or experience. Here's what Jesus says. He says, very truly I tell you, you will weep and you will mourn while the world rejoices. That you will weep and mourn when I die, though the world will rejoice in that moment. And you will grieve, but your grief will turn to joy. Now again, if you're a skeptic, I'm going to tell you, if it were me and I was a skeptic, I would look at this passage and go, this makes 0 sense. There is not the possibility of joy at the same time of this deep weeping and mourning over a loved one. Should not be possible. Feels like an oxymoron. Then Jesus goes on and says this. A time is coming, and in fact has come, when you will be scattered. Not only will you be scattered, each to your own home, you will leave me all alone. You've been my closest followers, but you will leave me all alone into my deepest suffering. You will scatter and leave me by myself. And then he says this, yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. If you read it quick, it's so easy to miss. What Jesus is doing is referencing back to this idea of shalom, this ancient idea of peace that comes through the presence of God in the midst of the angst and suffering. And then Jesus says what I think are some of the most fascinating words in all of the Bible, because some people read it and it's this triumphant, Braveheart-esque kind of, moment. But I think he reads it, or I think he says it with this deep kind of brokenness in the midst of pain. Jesus says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace, so that you might find that shalom or that presence of God through every step of the journey. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I love that. It's like he grabs John, he grabs Peter. Take heart. Be encouraged. Live your life with peace. And he says the words that are the foundation for all of Christianity. So that's for I have overcome the world. I have entered into the world and overcome all of the brokenness and the pain. I have overcome everything you would put on your list that causes you angst. Why? Because I am bigger than your problem and your pain. Does that mean you're going to solve it in the way that I think? Not necessarily. The promise of the scriptures and the promise that comes with peace is that God meets you in their brokenness and walks with you, strengthening every single one of those moments. If you want to find peace, you have to understand that peace demands us to refocus from the problem to a person, and the person is Jesus. So for those of you who are not followers of Jesus, you're skeptic, you're here because somebody promised you lunch afterwards, which I love, get the free lunches. I would totally do it. Here's what I'm going to tell you, right? And I'm saying this like, you don't know me, I don't know you, but like lovingly I would say, I don't know how you have peace in circumstances that are beyond you. Because you don't control it. And you know you don't control it. And I don't know how you find peace in moments where you look at it and it feels like life falls apart or the bottom falls out. Because it's beyond you, and you know it's beyond you. You ever met somebody who had enormous amount of centeredness and peace in the midst of temptation and trial and difficulty that you couldn't explain? I met a guy the other day. We were at breakfast. We were talking about this with a family member. And I'm like sitting there listening to talk. I'm like, that's extraordinary. That's spiritual. There's something deeper happening in those moments. It's not because of the individual. It's because they put their trust in Jesus. Now, a couple weeks ago, I guess 2 weeks ago, our little guy got legit sick for the first time, right? So he's like 2 years old, and he's A-okay, by the way. I forgot to tell 9 o'clock that. I got so many people, is he all right? He's fine, yeah. But about 2 weeks ago, he got sick, and he'd been sick for days and days and days and days. And if you're a parent, like when they actually get sick beyond a cold, it's a terrible feeling, because you feel a little bit helpless. And so when I get sick, I'm like, if I have like a limb hanging off, I'm like, I'll sleep it off. I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't go to the doctor for anything. I should. My wife gets sick, and I like drive her to the emergency room, middle of the night. She's fine. Got a cold. When Henry gets sick, she's kind of the grounded one in our house. And so we finally take him to the urgent care. It was like 7 o'clock at night, I take him to the urgent care. Show up at the urgent care. And you walk in, they do all the tests, right? Check his heartbeat, check his temperature. He has a really high temperature, which they're like, we can bring that down. And, his heart rate, and then they took his heart rate, and like, wow, that's really high. It shouldn't be that high. It's probably whatever they use to take that. Steffi, what do they use to take that? What do they call that? What, heart monitor? Yeah. She knows stuff. Stethoscope. I should know these things. Don't ever call on me to help you get not sick, right? She's a nurse. And so They took his heart, and they're like, that's really high, right? And I was like, yeah, it's really high. They're like, well, it's probably just the instrument. We'll just go back. 30 minutes later, they take it again. It's still super high. They're like, oh, it's probably the instrument. I'm like, I don't know about that, 2 hours in, they take it again. A new person comes in, like, yeah, fever's coming down, but his heart rate's still really high. But you know what? I think it's probably the instrument. I'm like, I think you should probably get a different instrument. I think we should work on that, I love Jesus. It's like, what do you do for a living? I'm in a nonprofit world. I'm like, don't tell me you're a pastor. Anyway, so I'm kind of there doing this whole deal, and then we were there for probably 3 hours. And so I took this picture because I think it really captures kind of where we were. We were there for a long time. This is Emily, and this is Henry. Really bad fever, the whole deal, and I'm feeling this helpless feeling, right? I'm just feeling the angst around this, and it's just a tough moment. And again, he's got a fever, and his heart rate's high. And so then they walk back in not too long after, and they're like, hey, we think you should go to the emergency room. And I'm like, that's not what we're looking for you to say right now. That's not really the hope. And so they give us a piece of paper. And again, I'm, first time dad, 2 years old. We get in the car. I didn't know my Honda could go that fast. It's awesome. And it was the night that Santa came to Traverse City, right? So and we were downtown area. So it's like packed out. I did not cuss, but it was a moment. And so we were driving. And so we prayed in the car. And when we prayed in the car, something shifted in my heart. Because I had all this angst, I had all this fear, I had all this I can't solve it, I had all this it's beyond me, I had all this what's wrong with the instruments, all that stuff. And I prayed a prayer, and the prayer that I prayed was whatever at the beginning. And then right somewhere in the middle, I prayed almost like as a reminder to God, but as a reminder to me, that he is yours, not mine. And when it's out of my control, he's yours. And I know this sounds weird, but something like shifted and broke and changed in my heart. I was still driving really fast, but we got there. And I'll never forget, though, thinking that peace that flooded my mind and my heart and the whole deal over this fever heart rate thing with my kid is a peace that's only possible through faith. It's peace that's only possible through coming to God, not like close-fisted but open-handed, and saying, I trust you. And I'm inviting your presence into this moment to remind me that you're bigger than this. That's a really small area. But some of you, you've been walking through your marriage stuff for a long time, and the last thing that you've tried is letting go and saying, God, I'm going to do everything in my power to do what you call me to do, but I'm going to come into this open-handed, inviting your presence and your peace, your shalom into this moment. Some of you have been doing that with your finances. Like, we're 10 years in with your financial issue, and you feel the angst and the weight, and Christmas just makes it worse and worse and worse. Because you know January is going to be real bad, you know? And the last thing that you've tried is just saying, God, I'm going to do everything that you call me to do, but I'm going to invite your presence into this moment and recognize my limitations and recognize your power. For some of us, it feels like God is like prying open our hands, right? But I think for those of us who are followers of Jesus in the room, the heart of Christmas is one where we get to say that the child entered into the world to bring shalom, to bring peace, to usher in the presence of God into our hearts and in our lives, into all of our angst. And that part of being a follower of Jesus is that you have access to a peace that really is beyond all understanding. Now, for those of you who are not followers of Jesus, here's what I want to tell you, and we're going to wrap up. My question for you, and part of the reason we showed you the video earlier, was what is it that you have opened your mind or heart to that has the kind of life-changing power that you heard in Nicodemus' story? Like, where else do you find that kind of life-changing power? And if you're here today, even though somebody promised you lunch, you're probably at least a little bit curious. And my prayer for you, whether you come back here, you don't come back, you go somewhere, whatever that is, hopefully you come back. But my prayer for you is that you begin to find a way to just open your hands and open your heart and say, if you're up there, show me and continually remind me that I'm not in control. Because I think if you start with that posture, all of a sudden you begin to discover that there's a God who's meeting you in every single one of those moments. And though you've resisted, and though you've pushed away, those you've intellectually figured out why it's not true, something in your heart will begin to open slightly. And you might begin to see for the first time the only way to peace in the midst of that kind of angst and brokenness. So to wrap up our time together, we're going to sing a song. And the song we're going to sing is a song called Lord Remind Me. And Ben's going to lead us in it. But there were these like two lines in the song that I think just make it so perfect for what we're talking about today. And it says this. It says, Lord, remind me, the cry of faith is so simple. And it's the greatest song in heaven's hymnal because it's Christmas and I want to remember. And what we get to remember is that Jesus entered into the world to usher in the presence of God, to usher in a level of peace that is beyond our understanding. It only requires us to open our hearts and open our hands and say, I trust you. Let me pray for us. Father, for some of us, this is the first time we've stopped all week and just paused and just reflected on life and where we are in it. And God, I pray for the person in this room that is experiencing an enormous amount of angst and maybe fear and difficulty or pain. I pray for the person who's got relational baggage. I pray for the person who's got financial baggage. I pray for the person that's, gosh, I love the future one. that's looking to the future and with a big question mark. Father, I pray that you would remind us that Christmas is not just about celebration stuff that we do on the Christmas tree and relatives and in-laws, but it is a reminder that you sent your Son into the world to bring freedom, to bring peace, to throw up the political powers, to bust up all of the notions and mindset that we have about doing it on our own, and to remind us of our state of being fragile. God, I pray that today we would just pause and remember that in the midst of our brokenness and pain, in the midst of our future brokenness and pain, in the midst of our questions and doubt and concern, God, that you meet us right there. And I pray that we would find peace that only comes from your presence. And that through that peace, you would change our hearts and you would change our lives, and that you would move us to impact the community that you put us in. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
When children play on Christmas Day and snow is flown, when I feel I haven't had a friend since I was young, and I'm feeling tired of myself and everyone, so Lord, remind me, Lord, remind me that the shepherds heard the angels break the silence in the field, that the wise men found a baby and they could not help but kneel, that the one who heard our weeping became a child in manger sleeping. Lord, remind me, 'cause it's Christmas and I want to remember.
When I hear the news and hear another war's begun, and I wonder if God's on the side of either one.
I hear bullet, nail, or handcuff, he bore all of them. And in the light, my heart's as dark as anyone. So Lord, remind me, Lord, remind me, that the shepherds heard the angels break the silence in the field, that the wise men found a baby and they could not help but kneel, that the one who heard our weeping became a child in manger sleeping. Lord, remind me, 'cause it's Christmas and I want to remember. Tell me how he loves me, tell me how he wants me, tell me the story like I've never heard before. And I'll sing it, my angels sing it, with my whole heart singing to him who's worth 1,000 sons and more. That shines when nothing seems to shine at all. Glory in the highest glory. The paralytic rose, stood up proud on his 2 feet. The thief who hung beside you is with you now and waits for me. The cry of faith so simple, the greatest song in heaven's hymnal. Lord, remind me, 'cause it's Christmas and I want to remember.
Just watching those photos in the background and just seeing that joy, just seeing that peace, that really, you know, from a Western standpoint, just kind of hearing the story, it's really hard to understand. You kind of get the idea of peace that surpasses all understanding. It just kind of hits you in that moment. And I just want to invite everyone in the room, if you feel comfortable, we're going to stand and sing a carol, and it's called Come Let Us Adore Him. And it just kind of gets us to that place of response out of that peace. So if you feel comfortable in this time, you can stand, and we're going to sing together. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing that again. Oh, come. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. For you alone are worthy. For you alone are worthy. For you alone are worthy. For you alone are worthy in Christ the Lord. All right, this next part is our response, giving God all that he is worthy. For you, we give you all the glory. And if you feel comfortable, let's sing it as loud as we can. We'll give you all the glory. We'll give you all the glory. We'll give you all the glory. The Lord.
So with Christmas just around the corner, we know that some of you are like, you're here, and a lot of people around you won't know, people that are your friends may not even know, but there's like this angst that you're feeling. And we would love to come alongside you if you're feeling some of that angst today. So there's a couple of options that you have just to connect with us. We have a starting point out in the lobby. So if it's your first time, you're like, I want more information, but I also love to talk to somebody about what I'm feeling. We got an environment out there at Starting Point. We'd love to connect with you. If you're someone who comes consistently, like you call Kensington home, we'd love for you just to maybe go out. There's a prayer area right out there. There's a couple of people that would love to meet you out there and just talk to you and kind of talk to you about what's going on and maybe how you can kind of shift that perspective from what we've talked about today. I want to give you two quick reminders. Again, next week we're continuing this series, and then next week we're right at our Christmas Eve services, and we'd ask you if you would to go ahead and make sure to get your Christmas tickets. Again, they don't cost anything. They're super free. It really is just an RSVP, but it lets us just know that you're going to be here so that we can make sure that we're ready for you and your family and all the people that you bring with you. So thanks so much for being here this week, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed this service. For any information about our global partners or about what we do here or even about making a year-end Christmas gift, we'd love to invite you to check out our website at kensingtonchurch.org just kensingtonchurch.org. And also, too, we want you to check out our app. We have a free app available for both Android and iPhone users. Also, if you are interested in coming to one of our Christmas services, we have over 50 services available between all of our 8 campuses. And you can get your free Christmas tickets at kensingtonchurch.org/Christmas. We hope that you enjoyed this, and we hope that you'll come back next week as we finish our series called The Heart of Christmas.